most respected Venerable Dr. Nyangoda Vijitasri Anunaya Gathero, most Venerable Dr. Vaskaduve Mahinda Vansa Mahanaya Gathero, the Vice Chancellor of this prestigious university, Dr. Dhaminda Porage, the chairperson of the Foundation of Buddhist Brotherhood. Today is the 88th birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So on this occasion, a conference is organized on the contribution of Buddhism to humanity. And also I welcome and would like to address the faculties and HODs of various departments. This occasion is a very special occasion for the entire global community. The topic is extremely vast and which cannot be covered in 20 minutes that is given to me. And also on the top of that, I have to speak a little bit on His Holiness the Dalai Lama's commitment and his contribution to humanity. Both of these are so vast topic that even a part of that is difficult to be covered in such a short period. So I will be just telling the outlines of what are the commitments of Buddhism. And then I'll go to the Buddha's, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's commitment. The commitment of Buddhism to humanity is certainly something that is to be understood, because in a nutshell we can say that commitment of Buddhism is to bring peace and happiness in individual person and in the society. And the rest of the whole philosophical theories, philosophical systems and spiritual systems are all about to bring up this peace and happiness within the individuals and in the society. Unless we bring peace and happiness within the individuals, it is not possible to be brought in society, because society is constituted by individuals. So, how to bring this, bring peace and happiness in individual person is a very, very challenging thing. Yes, the Buddha, when he gave teachings on the Ashad Purnima that we celebrated just few days back, that brought a revolution in the spirituality and the philosophical domain in India at that time. The Buddha presented a path and a system that how happiness and peaceful can be developed within a person through the transformation, through understanding the reality of the object, reality of the world, and reality of oneself. Who am I? Who we are, and what are the objects, what they are constituted of, and what is the reality of the object and inner and external world. And that needs a lots of contemplation and understanding. That is why in Buddhism, it takes a very long time for proper study to achieve a very higher degrees in the system of Buddhism. So during that, those teachings, starting from the Four Noble Truths teaching at Sarnath, he gave so many teachings, countless teachings during his lifetime. And there was a reaction and arguments from many scholars of their time, many philosophical views of their time. Of course, that was natural. And then this kind of conversation, interaction kept, went on for centuries. And the great masters of Nalanda, Vikramashila, Takshashila, and Odandapuri, and many of the scholars of those great universities, monastic universities, interacted with the non-Buddhist philosophical schools and religious schools. And that was a very rich interaction. And you can even today see the interactions in the treatises of the masters, the Buddhist masters and non-Buddhist Indian masters, how richly that kind of interaction took place. And Buddhism, through the through philosophical the systems, presentation of philosophical views, through epistemology, through logic, what kind of changes Buddhism brought in India, for over a millennium, till earlier half of the 13th century. Buddhism, had a very serious and rich interaction with other philosophical schools, and that gave us very substantial and constructive contribution to the further development of Indian philosophical system and intellectual system, which we can see in the treatises and the academic system. So this is something that we can see how Buddhism, in order to bring peace and tranquility and happiness in human society and individual person's life, makes and gives a presentation of the whole system. What kind of system was presented? This is still prevalent in the traditions of like Sri Lanka, where we are now, and in the Theravada Buddhist tradition, and in the Mahayana Buddhist traditions. In the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, we have two traditions. Within the Mahayana traditions, there is Pragyaparamita Sutra tradition and the Tantra tradition. Many people think that Mahayana and Tantrayana are separate. No, Mahayana is a general umbrella. Within that, there is the Tantrayana and there is a Sutrayana. So individual persons, for example, in Tibetan tradition, which is also prevalent in Mongolia, in Russia, in Nepal, in Bhutan, and in northern region of India, you can see how these two traditions are incorporated in one's life, in bringing transformation in oneself. As His Holiness, the Dalai Lama himself has said that he has been trying and he has been doing the practices, raising up early morning at around 3 o'clock, and then every day for 4 to 5 hours he practices. And that he practices to develop compassion, to advance his compassion and loving kindness, and also to understand the reality of object through which one can understand the reality, right? And then that contributes a lot to the understanding of and the development of the values and compassion and the altruistic attitude. So this is the general background. We can see that with such a contribution to the philosophical and to humanity in India at that time, and then it went to the to all the Asian countries attracted by Buddhism. Buddhism did not go there and propagate it, but the Buddhist, value systems and religious systems and philosophical systems attracted all the countries, Asian countries, and then they received and went to their respective places and transformed those places to a very peaceful, nation and society. Now, in the modern age, it is being, received in the Western world, as we can see. So I'll very briefly cover that in my presentation, that it is received not only by the common people, but by the intellectuals, by the philosophers, and by the scientists of different disciplines. So this is the background on which His Holiness the Dalai Lama developed his own personality, and he received the teachings and did the practice, and on the basis of which he became a global master, and revered by millions of people, of not only by the Buddhist community, as he said in his speech, not only by the Buddhist community, but also by other religious communities, and even by non-believers. So this is how what His Holiness, he has 4 commitments. One of the most important commitment is to promote the human values. Human values like patience and altruistic mind, compassion, and controlling negative emotions, and developing loving and kindness. Of course, these come from religious order, for example, from Buddhism. And people feel that when we talk about compassion, it is a religious kind of entity. Not at all. It is a natural human, kind of mental system. And this, His Holiness's view is that it is a natural, and it is not necessarily, it is not relevant to a particular religious system or any religious system. This is even relevant, cultivation and development of human values, compassion, loving kindness, altruism, and these are relevant even to the non-believers, even those who reject religion, because they are also human beings, and they are also emotional beings. They also want to be loved, and they love their beloved ones. So these are some of the things that he wanted to give a message to the rest of the world, to the entire world, through scientific languages. And he had for the last over 30 years he had a conversation and interaction with the leading scientists of the world. And during that time there was interaction, and the scientists had an interest to look into the mind. Earlier, the scientists have had a kind of approach to the physical world. But once they understood that anger, hatred, and these are the sources of suffering, and this can be reduced. And Buddhism talks about not only reducing them, but also eliminating them. And then the loving kindness, tolerance, and patience, and compassion, these are the sources of happiness, sources of peace. So these can be developed deliberately through training. These are the mental factors that we need to introspect and see into the system of mind. It is not some kind of external mechanism, but it is a very systematic mental mechanism which we can look into it, which we can study, and then which we can work on this and attain happiness and peace through deliberation, through practice, through understanding, by understanding the system and doing the practice. And this is, as I said earlier, this is not something, a religious dogma, but it is natural. As we, if we want a mango, then we, sow the seed of mango, and then, put water and all the necessary things, and then we get the, the fruit. Similarly, if we want peace, then we have to work on this. We want a peace, and then if we run after, developing anger, hatred, this is not possible. The causal relationship between suffering and, the causal relation between the negative emotions and negative mind and, suffering, there is a relation, intrinsic relation. There's an intrinsic relation with the positive, constructive mind and happiness. So we cannot have otherwise the system. So therefore, in order to have this, His Holiness had interaction with many of the neuroscientists, and they got convinced through their own study, and then they studied, and there are lots of studies are being done, and so many groundbreaking findings have been brought. Like, for example, the neuroplasticity is one. Earlier, the neuroscientists used to believe that the neurons are static, and also neurons circuits cannot be changed. Now, after meditation, when they studied on the brain who have done meditation for thousands of hours and 40, 50 thousands of hours in their life, they have seen that the neurons are plastic by nature, and the circuits of the neurons can be changed through meditation, through environmental power. So then, once these can be changed, then can we have a deliberate attempt to make this change? They did it, they experimented it. Now this is being experimented on many people, many common persons who are not practitioner at all, but now it is being practiced among the non-believers, and even a street person can be brought and taught the meditation system even for 1 week. That can bring down their destructive emotions to a great extent, which helps them to be much happier in many ways. So this is a kind of scientifically proven, and now this is being spoken in the language of the science, which is the call of the day. So people who do not believe in the religion, and who have a very kind of skeptic view about religious system, if these are brought in front of them, they accept it, and then many of the countries have accepted it. Now these are taught even in the schools. There is a C learning, social, emotional, and ethical learning, which is now being taught in the schools of over 100 countries. And from class 1 to class 12, there is a curriculum developed by Emory University in the United States, Atlanta. And this is now being taught in many of those hundreds and thousands of schools. So these are some of the, as I said that we don't have time, so we cannot cover. Each of these, subtopics can be a topic of a major lecture and a symposium. So I don't want to, elaborate because of the shortage of time. So similarly, then His Holiness is, the commitment towards the religious harmony, because on the name of religion, we have seen fightings and wars in the world at different time, at different places, within a country, and also at different places. So these are something that actually the religion is meant for peace. But if that itself becomes a cause of a war and suffering, then it is something like, the fire, the water can bring fire. If fire is, the water brings fire, then how we can put down the fire? Normally, when there is a fire, we can put water and put it down. But if the water itself catches fire, then there is no way that it can be cooled down. So therefore, His Holiness made a very sincere attempt to bring all the religions together. He has a book written on religious harmony. In that, he sincerely shares his view about the major religion of the world, that they have different philosophical systems, of course, in order to suit different mentalities of different personalities. But at the bottom, every religion believes, and every religion gives the message of peace, harmony, compassion, loving kindness. And this is to be practiced. And if this can be practiced, if we can develop respect to other religions, that is the most important. That is something that, the most challenging for many of the people. So if we can respect others, in terms of their, the religious system, then the harmony is there. But developing, cultivating respect to other religion is quite challenging. But if we really understand the nature of humanity, nature of human beings, nature of mind, and what each of these religions, has contributed in human history, then we can cultivate, respect to other religions, which is very important. Another thing is the Tibetan culture. Of course, His Holiness, after 1959, when Tibet was occupied by China, Tibetan culture, Tibetan identity was almost at the verge of total destruction. And it is His Holiness the Dalai Lama who brought the entire system up again, revived it, and not only revived this in India by opening and the many of those the reopening and establishing the monasteries of Tibet. Many thousands of monks and nuns study there, and then the whole system was revived. And not only in India, so many Westerners, many people from Asian countries, came to India to study with the Tibetan masters, and then they went back to their respective countries, and then promoted those the Tibetan culture and system, which is the heritage and legacy of a Nalanda tradition. Because one thing that I would like to mention here is that the Nalanda tradition, in Sanskrit tradition, there was lots of argument, as I mentioned earlier, argument for non-Buddhist schools. But the answer was the interaction took place through the medium of Sanskrit language, because the other religious scholars did not read Pali. So they read Sanskrit, and Sanskrit was the intellectual kind of language of India at that time. So it was interacted very profusely, richly by those great masters on the allegations of many of the principles, the religious and philosophical principles. So that, really, made a groundbreaking kind of contribution to the Indian philosophical systems and the academic system, intellectual system at a larger, perspective. And so His Holiness Dalai Lama has made a tremendous contribution to the revival of Tibetan culture and preservation of Tibetan culture and language. And then I would like to say that His Holiness' fourth commitment is to bring back, revive the ancient knowledge system of India among the youngsters, Indian youngsters, because they are too much, according to his words, youngsters have become very much materialistic. So therefore, the youngsters should pay attention to the ancient Indian knowledge system and the spiritual system, so that they can pay more attention to their inner system and look into the sources of the peace and happiness through which they can be a better person and contribute to the betterment of the world and bring peace in a human community. So I once again thank the organizers and the prestigious Kelaniya University for giving me this opportunity and to see this wonderful Buddhist country. It was my first visit, and yesterday I went to the Truth Relic Kanti, the temple. It was wonderful to see the Buddhist culture vibrantly perceptible in the people's life and in the country's system, and it can be seen everywhere. It can be heard. It can be felt. So therefore, I really congratulate the Sri Lankan country as a whole and the government and the people for the preservation of Buddhist culture, which can be not as a, as a religious system itself, but which can contribute a lot to the world, peace. Thank you very much.